Admiral Lee Hanna pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck, staring into the endless black of space. 3 years ago, she had been a simple cargo pilot running supplies between Mars and the outer colonies. Today, she commanded the largest military force in human history. 900,000 warships floated in perfect formation around her flagship, the Vengeance Rising. Each vessel hummed with deadly purpose, their weapon systems charged and ready for the fight that would determine humanity's future. The bridge buzzed with controlled energy as officers moved between their stations. Captain Park Jun, her second-in-command, approached with a data pad clutched in his weathered hands. His face bore the same haunted expression that marked every survivor of Earth's destruction. The lines around his eyes had deepened over the past 3 years, carved by sleepless nights and the weight of 10 billion lost souls. "Final fleet reports, Admiral," Jun said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "All 900,000 ships are in position. Every captain has confirmed battle readiness. The weapon systems are operating at peak efficiency, and our supply lines are secure." Hanna nodded, accepting the pad without looking at the numbers. She had memorized every statistic, every ship class, every weapon capability. The Terran Defense Fleet had become her life's work, built from the scattered remnants of humanity's colonial forces. Ships that once carried grain and medical supplies now bristled with plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes. Mining vessels had been converted into heavy assault platforms. Even luxury cruise liners had been retrofitted with military-grade shields and weapon arrays. "Tell me about morale, Jun," she said quietly. "High, Admiral, dangerously high." He moved to stand beside her at the viewport. "The crews are eager for battle. Some of the younger officers worry they might be too eager. Revenge burns hot, but it can make people careless." Through the reinforced glass, Hanna could see the closest ships in their formation. The battleship New Seoul hung 2 kilometers to starboard, its hull scarred from the frantic construction efforts on Titan's shipyards. Beyond it, the carrier Incheon's Pride launched practice flights of fighter craft, their blue engine trails writing temporary letters against the stars. Each ship represented months of desperate work, entire colonies stripping their worlds bare to contribute materials and personnel. A soft chime drew her attention to the communication console. Lieutenant Kim Yuri, the youngest officer on the bridge, looked up from her station with eyes that seemed too old for her 23 years. "Admiral, we're receiving final coordination signals from the outer fleet groups. Admiral Park Soo reports his heavy assault wing is ready. Admiral Choi Min confirms her stealth squadron has completed their reconnaissance sweep of the hyperspace. Route." Hanna walked to the center of the bridge, where a massive holographic display showed the entire fleet formation. Green dots represented human ships, stretching across dozens of cubic kilometers of space. Each dot was a ship. Each ship carried hundreds of crew members, and each crew member had lost someone on Earth. The mathematics of grief were staggering. "Patch me through to all ships," she commanded. The communication array activated with a low hum, connecting her voice to nearly 1 million human beings scattered across the fleet. She thought of her brother Kim Tae, remembering his last message from Earth's orbital defense platform. His voice had been calm, even as the hegemony's weapons carved through the planet's crust, turning cities into glass and mountains into ash. "This is Admiral Lee Hanna, commanding officer of the Terran Vengeance Fleet," she began, her words carrying across the void to every bridge, every engine room, every fighter cockpit. 3 years ago we lost everything: our homeworld, our families, our innocence. The creatures that call themselves the hegemony turned Earth into a graveyard and left us scattered among the stars like refugees." She paused, watching through the viewport as fighter squadrons performed final maneuvers between the larger ships. The pilots flew with precision, born of endless practice and burning purpose. "Today, we stop running. Today, we stop mourning. Today, we make them understand what it means to threaten humanity." Her voice grew stronger, carrying the accumulated fury of every human colony that had contributed to this moment. "Intelligence reports suggest the hegemony operates from a single massive world ship. One target, one chance to end this war before it spreads to our remaining worlds." Captain Park Jun moved to the navigation console, his fingers dancing over the hyperspace coordinates. The ship's massive engines began their startup sequence, a vibration that Hana could feel in her bones. Around them, 900,000 other ships performed the same ritual, preparing to tear through the fabric of space itself. "Signal all ships," Hana commanded, her voice cutting through the bridge noise. "Today we make them pay for every life, every dream, every future they stole from us. Today humanity shows the galaxy what happens when you destroy our home." The fleet formation shifted as ships aligned for the hyperspace jump. Energy readings spiked across the tactical displays as 900,000 hyperspace drives synchronized their frequencies. The space around them began to shimmer as reality prepared to fold. With a flash that briefly outshone nearby stars, the largest revenge fleet in galactic history vanished into hyperspace, carrying humanity's wrath toward an enemy that had no idea what was coming for them. The hyperspace window collapsed behind them with a sound like thunder, and Admiral Lee Hana expected to emerge into a storm of enemy fire. Instead, the Vengeance Rising drifted into absolute silence. The tactical screens that should have been screaming with threat warnings showed nothing but empty space and floating debris. "What the hell?" Captain Park Jun whispered, staring. At the main display, the sight before them defied every battle plan they had prepared. Wreckage stretched across 3 entire star systems, billions of ship fragments spinning slowly in the vacuum like a graveyard of metal and composite materials. Some pieces were as large as city blocks, others no bigger than a human fist, all of them drifting in perfect silence through the cold void. Commander Song Min hunched over his sensor array, his face pale in the blue glow of the scanner displays. His fingers moved rapidly across the controls, trying to make sense of readings that seemed impossible. "Admiral, I'm getting massive debris signatures across 17 different sectors. The computer is having trouble cataloging it all." "How many ships?" Hana asked, moving to stand behind his station. "Conservative estimate? Billions, maybe tens of billions." Song Min's voice cracked slightly. "But here's the strange part. These aren't all hegemony vessels. I'm detecting hull compositions from at least 40 different species. Some of these materials don't match anything in our databases." Lieutenant Kim Yuri looked up from her communication station, her young face creased with confusion. "Admiral, I'm not picking up any distress signals. No emergency beacons, no automated messages. It's like they all just stopped talking at the same time." Through the main viewport, Hana could see fragments of alien technology drifting past. A piece of what looked like crystalline hull plating caught the light from a distant star, sparkling like a jewel before disappearing into the darkness. Another fragment bore strange markings that seemed to shift and change as she watched, as if the metal itself was somehow alive. "There," Captain Yundal called out from the long-range scanning station. "Grid reference 77 Alpha, the Hegemony world ship." The main screen shifted to show their target, and Hana felt her blood run cold. The massive vessel that intelligence reports had described as an unstoppable fortress now drifted like a dead whale in the cosmic ocean. Its hull, which should have been bristling with weapon systems and defense grids, was dark and lifeless. No energy signatures, no movement, no sign of the military might that had reduced Earth to ash. "Captain Yoon, give me a full sensor sweep." "Of that ship," Hana ordered. Yoon's hands flew over his controls, directing the Vengeance Rising's most powerful scanners toward their target. The readings that came back made no sense. "Admiral, I'm detecting minimal life signs scattered throughout the vessel, maybe a few thousand individuals out of what should be a crew of millions. No active weapon systems, no defensive shields, no engine activity. It's like they're all in some kind of suspended animation. Or dying," Song Min added grimly, studying his own readings. "I'm detecting massive system failures throughout their ship. Life support is operating at less than 10% capacity." Hana walked to the tactical display, studying the patterns of debris around them. The human fleet hung in formation like an army ready for war, but their enemy appeared to have already been defeated by someone else. Fighter squadrons from the carrier Incheon's Pride performed cautious patrol routes through the wreckage, their pilots reporting the same thing: absolute silence. "Admiral," Captain Park Jun said quietly, Look at how these ships were destroyed. He directed her attention to a cluster of wreckage from what appeared to have been a massive battleship. The hull sections showed no signs of plasma burns, no explosion damage, no indication of weapons fire. Instead, the metal looked like it had simply stopped working, as if some fundamental force that held the atoms together had been switched off. "It's the same pattern everywhere," Songmin confirmed, his voice growing more unsettled. "No battle damage, no weapon signatures. These ships didn't fight and lose. They just died. All at once, from the looks of it." Lieutenant Cho Nara from the engineering station spoke up, her voice tight with concern. "Admiral, I'm detecting some kind of energy residue throughout the debris field. It's unlike anything we've encountered before, almost like the space itself remembers something terrible happening here." Fighter pilot reports crackled through the communication system. "Vengeance rising. This is Phoenix Squadron. We're flying through what looks like the remains of a massive space station. No signs of life, but the architecture is incredible. These aliens built things on a scale we can barely imagine." Another pilot's voice joined the chatter. "Dragon Leader. To base. I'm seeing ship designs from species I've never seen before. Some of these hulls look organic, like they were grown rather than built. What happened to all these people?" Hana studied the tactical display, watching as her scout ships moved carefully through the debris field. Each report painted the same picture: vast fleets from dozens of species, all destroyed simultaneously by some unknown force. The hegemony, the mighty empire that had obliterated Earth, appeared to be just another victim. "Admiral, Captain Yoon," Dal called out, his voice tense with discovery. "I'm detecting something else. Long-range sensors are picking up massive geometric objects at the edge of the system. They're not moving, but they're huge, bigger than anything in our databases." The main screen shifted to show the distant contacts. Strange, angular shapes hung in space like sleeping giants, their surfaces reflecting no light. They looked artificial, but not like any technology humanity had ever encountered. Each one was the size of a moon, and there were dozens of them arranged in a perfect grid pattern. "Those aren't hegemony ships," Songmin said with certainty. "The energy signatures are completely different. Whatever built those things makes..." The hegemony looked primitive. Hana felt a chill run down her spine as the implications became clear. Humanity had come here expecting to fight the destroyers of Earth, only to discover that the hegemony had already been destroyed by something far worse. Something that built moon-sized ships and could kill entire fleets without leaving a trace of conventional weapons fire. "Prepare boarding parties for the hegemony world ship," she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. "Full combat gear, maximum caution. We need to know what happened here, and we need to know fast. Something tells me we're not alone in this system." The human fleet hung in space, 900,000 ships strong, suddenly feeling very small, among the floating graveyards of civilizations they had never known existed. The airlock hissed open, and Lieutenant Cho Nara stepped into the hegemony world ship with her weapon raised. The air tasted wrong, thick and metallic, filled with the smell of failing systems and something else she couldn't identify. Behind her, 12 Marines followed in tight formation, their combat suits sealed against whatever atmosphere the aliens breathed. "This place gives me the creeps," whispered Private Li Dong, his voice crackling through the comm system. The corridors stretched endlessly in both directions, their walls made of some kind of living metal that pulsed weakly with dying light. Sergeant Kang Su raised his hand, signaling the team to halt. "Movement ahead, 3 o'clock, about 50 meters." Through the dim lighting, they could see shapes moving slowly along the corridor walls. As they approached, Nara realized these weren't machines or robots. They were the hegemony themselves. And they were dying. The creatures were nothing like humanity had imagined. Each alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies covered in translucent skin that showed the dark fluid flowing beneath like slow rivers. Their limbs were too long, their faces too wide, with eyes that held an intelligence that seemed ancient and tired. Many lay collapsed against the walls, their skin flickering with patterns of light that grew dimmer with each passing moment. "My God," Nara breathed, lowering her weapon slightly. "They're not soldiers. They're refugees." One of the creatures near the wall raised its head, fixing its large eyes on the human team. It tried to speak, but only a weak clicking sound emerged from its throat. The translator device on Nara's belt remained silent. The alien was too weak to form proper words. "Spread out," Kang Su ordered. "Check for survivors, but stay alert." This could still be some kind of trap. As they moved deeper into the ship, the scale of the tragedy became clear. Thousands of aliens filled the corridors, most of them barely alive. Their technology, which should have been maintaining perfect environmental conditions, sparked and failed around them. Life support systems wheezed and struggled, their power sources nearly depleted. Private Kim Han found a group of smaller aliens huddled in what appeared to be a medical bay. "Sergeant, these look like children. They're scared." The young aliens pressed against each other, their translucent skin showing rapid heartbeats beneath. Their eyes followed the humans with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. One of the adult aliens nearby tried to position itself between the humans and the children, despite being too weak to stand. "So they're protecting their young," Nara observed. "These aren't the monsters who destroyed Earth. Something's very wrong here." A deep, resonant sound echoed through the corridors, part machine, part organic voice. The translation device on Nara's belt crackled to life as they approached the source. In a vast chamber at the ship's center, they found the hegemony's leader. The creature was massive, even by their species standards, connected to dozens of life support tubes and monitoring devices. Its skin had turned almost completely transparent, showing organs that pulsed weakly inside its failing body. Ancient scars covered its hide, and one of its four arms hung uselessly at its side. "Humans," the creature said. Its voice filtered through the translator with a mechanical echo. "So you came, as we hoped, as we feared." Sergeant Kang Su stepped forward, his weapon trained on the alien leader. "You destroyed our world, killed 10 billion people. Why shouldn't we end this right now?" The creature's large eyes closed for a moment, and when it spoke again, its voice carried a weight of unbearable sadness. "Because you do not understand. We are not your enemy. We never were. Explain, now." Kang Su's finger hovered over his weapon's trigger. "The harvesters," the alien whispered, and the words seemed to make the air itself grow colder. "Ancient machines, old as galaxies. They sweep across space every few thousand years, consuming everything, every species, every world, every trace of life." On the walls around them, holographic displays flickered to life, showing images that made the humans step back in horror. Vast, geometric ships, each the size of a moon, descended on populated worlds. What followed wasn't conquest, it was consumption. Entire planets were stripped down to their cores, their populations processed into raw materials for the machine's endless expansion. 47 civilizations have fallen in this cycle alone, the leader continued. Billions upon billions of lives all fed to the machines. We barely escaped our own world's destruction. Lieutenant Nara lowered her weapon completely. "If you were running from these things, why attack Earth?" The alien's breathing grew more labored, its life support systems beeping frantically. "Earth, your species, unique neural patterns. Only race we ever found that could resist their harvesting process. Your minds work differently, chaotically, beautifully. The harvesters cannot process human consciousness." "So you murdered us for it?" Private Li Dong snarled. "No." The creature struggled to sit up, its voice gaining strength through desperation. "We tried to communicate. Your governments, they thought we were invaders, shot first. We had hours before the harvesters arrived in your system. Had to act." The holographic displays shifted, showing Earth's final moments from the hegemony's perspective. Their ships hadn't been firing weapons. They had been extracting something from the planet's population. Streams of energy, invisible to human sensors, flowing from Earth to their vessels. "We took neural patterns, genetic markers, consciousness templates. Not your lives, your essence, the weapon that can stop the harvest." The alien's voice grew, weaker. Earth's children scattered across the galaxy, each carrying the key in their DNA. Sergeant Kang Su felt his worldview crumbling. "You're saying Earth died to save the galaxy?" "Earth died so that humanity could live, and fight, and win." The creature's breathing became irregular. "The weapon is in you now, all of you. When the harvesters come, and they are coming, you must unite your minds. The neural patterns we preserved will activate. Admiral Hana's voice crackled through their comm system from the Vengeance Rising. Boarding team, report. Our long-range sensors are detecting movement from those geometric objects at the system's edge. The hegemony leader's eyes widened with terror. They wake. The harvesters wake. You must go. Must prepare. The weapon in your DNA. It requires unity, sacrifice, all human minds linked as one. How long do we have? Nara asked, though she dreaded the answer. Days, maybe hours. The aliens' life support systems began failing faster. We die here, but our purpose is complete. Humanity lives. The galaxy has hope. As if summoned by the creature's words, the ship's emergency lighting began flashing. In the distance, they could hear the sound of massive engines starting up. Not human engines, but something far older and more terrible. The harvesters were coming, and humanity was about to discover that their quest for revenge had been transformed into something far more important. A battle for the survival of all life in the galaxy. The alarm klaxons screamed through every corridor of the Vengeance Rising as Major Lim Sion watched the long-range sensors with growing horror. The geometric objects at the system's edge were moving, and they were massive beyond comprehension. Each harvester ship stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their surfaces covered in angular patterns that hurt to look at directly. Admiral, we have movement on the perimeter, Sion reported, his voice tight with controlled fear. 23 harvester vessels have broken from their grid formation. They're heading this way at incredible speed. Admiral Lee Hana stood at the center of the bridge, watching as the tactical display updated with nightmare precision. The approaching ships didn't move like normal vessels. They seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing to teleport from one position to another in jerky, impossible movements. Estimated time to contact? She asked. At their current rate, 6 hours, maybe less. Major Seon's hands shook as he adjusted the sensor controls. Admiral, these things are the size of small moons. Our entire fleet would barely scratch one of them. Through the communication system, reports flooded in from across the human armada. Captain Park Jun coordinated the defensive positions, but everyone knew conventional tactics meant nothing against an enemy that consumed galaxies for breakfast. Vengeance Rising. This is Captain Yoon Dal aboard the Soul's Hammer, came a tense voice over the comm. My engineering team is detecting some kind of energy field building around the harvester ships. It's like they're charging up for something big. Dr. Yang He burst onto the bridge, her lab coat wrinkled and her hair disheveled from hours of frantic calculations. In her hands, she carried data pads filled with equations that made her head spin just to look at. Admiral, I've analyzed the neural weapon data from the hegemony files. It's possible, but the risks are enormous. Explain it simply, Doctor, Hana said, never taking her eyes off the tactical display. The weapon works by linking human consciousness across vast distances. Every person in our fleet would need to connect their minds directly. No barriers, no protection. The neural strain could cause permanent brain damage, comas, or death. Yang He set down her calculations with trembling hands. We're talking about nearly 2 million people sharing one consciousness simultaneously. Lieutenant Kim Yuri looked up from her communication station, her young face pale with fear. Doctor, what happens if it doesn't work? Then we all die anyway when the harvesters strip our ships down to scrap metal, Yang He replied grimly. Back aboard the dying hegemony world ship, Lieutenant Cho Nara received an urgent transmission from their alien leader. The creature's life support systems were failing rapidly, but its voice carried desperate determination. Human warriors, the alien wheezed through the translator. Our remaining people, we offer our life energy to strengthen your weapon. 2,000 souls to boost your signal across the void. Sergeant Kang Su knelt beside the massive creature, no longer seeing an enemy but a fellow being facing extinction. You don't have to do this. You've already given enough. Redemption, the alien whispered, its translucent skin flickering with fading patterns of light. For what we did to your Earth, let our deaths have meaning. On the bridge of the Vengeance Rising, the situation grew more desperate by the minute. The Harvester scouts had entered the outer system, their geometric forms scanning the debris, fields with beams of sickly green light. Wherever the beams touched, the wreckage simply vanished. not destroyed but processed into component atoms. "They're testing the area," observed Commander Song Min, his sensor readings showing impossible energy levels. Learning about everything that happened here, Captain Park Jun approached Admiral Hana with the final fleet reports. "All ships report ready for neural link, but Admiral, some of the crew are terrified. They've heard the stories about what happened to test subjects during the early mind-link experiments." Hana remembered those reports. Volunteers who had suffered permanent mental damage, others who had fallen into comas that lasted for months. The technology was new, dangerous, and completely untested on this scale. "Patch me through to all ships," she ordered, her voice carrying across nearly 1 million human beings scattered throughout the fleet. "This is Admiral Lee Hana. In the next few hours, we face an enemy that has consumed entire galaxies. The Harvesters don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, and they don't leave survivors. But we have something they've never encountered before, the combined will of humanity." Through the viewports, crew members across the fleet could see the approaching Harvester scouts, their angular forms growing larger by the minute. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier ships. Though everyone knew conventional weapons would be useless, the neural link will connect all our minds as one. It's dangerous, it's untested, and some of us may not survive it. But if we don't try, every human colony, every child, every dream of our species dies with us today. Dr. Yang He activated the neural link transmitters throughout the fleet. The equipment hummed to life, sending out psychic resonance waves that made sensitive crew members dizzy just from proximity. "Remember who we are," Hana continued, her voice growing stronger. "We're the species that looked at an impossible universe and decided to explore it anyway. We're the children of Earth scattered among the stars but never broken. Today, we discover what humanity truly becomes when we stand together." The first Harvester scout ship entered the inner system, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. It was beautiful and terrible, ancient beyond measure, and utterly alien. "All ships, initiate neural link," Admiral Hana commanded. Across 900,000 vessels, humans closed their eyes and opened their minds. The space between the ships began to glow with soft blue light as consciousness reached across the void, seeking connection, seeking unity, seeking the strength to face the darkness that had consumed so many worlds before them. The harvest had begun, but humanity was ready to fight back. The neural link activated across 900,000 ships in a burst of blue-white energy that lit up the entire star system. Captain Lee Sung gripped his command chair as his consciousness suddenly exploded beyond the confines of his skull, reaching out through space to touch every human mind in the fleet. The sensation was overwhelming, like diving into an ocean of thoughts, memories, and emotions all flowing together as one massive river of human experience. "I can feel all of you," whispered Lieutenant Kim Yuri from her station, tears streaming down her face as she experienced the minds of nearly 2 million people simultaneously. Every fear, every hope, every memory of home. The weapon hidden in humanity's DNA awakened like a sleeping giant. Earth's final gift, encoded in every human cell during those last desperate moments, surged through the neural network with power that defied physics. The chaotic, beautiful complexity of human consciousness, with all its contradictions, dreams, and wild creativity, formed patterns that the universe had never seen before. On the approaching harvester ships, something impossible began to happen. The ancient machines, which had processed countless civilizations with cold efficiency, suddenly found themselves face to face with minds they couldn't understand or catalog. Human thoughts didn't follow logical pathways. They leaped from memory to imagination, from fear to courage, from love to fury in ways that made no mathematical sense. The lead harvester vessel, a geometric nightmare the size of a small moon, simply stopped moving. Its surface patterns, which had pulsed with alien intelligence for millions of years, began to flicker and fade. The machine's artificial mind tried to process what it was encountering and found itself trapped in endless loops of human paradox. "Their ships are shutting down," reported Major Lim Sion, his voice filled with wonder as he watched the tactical displays. "The harvesters are just stopping." But it wasn't just one ship. Across the entire system, the geometric vessels that had consumed galaxies began to fail. Their perfect angular forms, designed for maximum efficiency, became their weakness when faced with the beautiful chaos of human consciousness. The machines couldn't adapt to something so wonderfully illogical. Commander Song Min felt his awareness stretch across light years as the neural network reached its full power. Through the link, he could sense every human in the fleet, but also something more. The dying hegemony aliens aboard their world ship were adding their own life force to the weapon, their final gift to the species they had inadvertently saved. "The hegemony leader," came Lieutenant Cho Nara's voice through the comm system. "He's asking us to remember them not as destroyers, but as the ones who gave humanity the key to save the galaxy." Admiral Lee Hana stood at the center of the bridge, but she was no longer just one person. Through the neural link, she spoke with the voice of all humanity. Her consciousness had expanded to encompass the experiences of cargo pilots from the outer colonies, engineers from Mars, children born on distant worlds who had never seen Earth but carried its legacy in their hearts. "We understand now," she said, her words carrying across every ship in the fleet and somehow reaching beyond, touching the minds of humans in distant colonies who weren't even part of the battle. Earth didn't die for revenge. It died so we could become something greater. The transformation spreading through humanity was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Captain Park Jun found he could communicate with his entire crew simultaneously, sharing complex ideas and emotions instantly. They remained individuals with their own personalities and memories, but they had also become part of a larger whole, a species that existed as both one and many. Fighter pilot Lee Min soared through space between the disabled harvester ships, his consciousness linked not just to his squadron, but to every human in the fleet. He could feel the wonder of the engineers as they studied alien technology, the grief of the soldiers remembering Earth, and the hope of the colonists imagining a safer future. "The harvesters aren't destroyed," reported Dr. Yang He, her enhanced awareness allowing her to analyze the alien machines on levels she had never imagined possible. "They're transformed. Our consciousness is rewriting their programming, teaching them to value life instead of consuming it." Through the neural network, humanity could sense the change rippling outward. The geometric ships that had been instruments of galactic death were becoming something new. Protectors instead of destroyers, their vast processing power now dedicated to preserving life rather than harvesting it. The surviving hegemony beings, their leader's final breath carrying a message of gratitude and redemption, pledged themselves to this new human collective. Not as servants or subjects, but as partners, in rebuilding what the harvesters had destroyed. Their advanced technology, combined with humanity's chaotic creativity, would forge an alliance unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Commander Park Nari felt the change completing itself as human ships began spreading throughout the system. They moved with purpose now, not seeking revenge but carrying a mission that Earth itself had encoded in their DNA. They were no longer just survivors or refugees. They had become guardians. Every world that the harvesters consumed, every species, they destroyed every civilization they erased. Admiral Hana spoke through the collective consciousness of her people. "We will remember them all. We will ensure no other world suffers Earth's fate." The human fleet dispersed across the galaxy, each ship carrying part of the greater consciousness, but remaining connected across impossible distances. They established contact with surviving species, offered protection to vulnerable worlds, and began the long work of healing a galaxy scarred by endless cycles of harvest and consumption. In becoming Earth's Avengers, humanity had discovered their true destiny. They were no longer just another species struggling to survive in a hostile universe. They had become something unprecedented, a collective consciousness that valued individuality, a unified force that celebrated diversity, a species that had looked into the face of galactic extinction and chosen to become its guardians instead. The neural link would fade with time, but the connection would remain. Humanity had evolved beyond what they once were, carrying Earth's final gift into a future where no world would ever again face the terror of the harvest alone. The end.